Welcome back to Build. I'm your host, Brittany Jones-Cooper, and today I'm sitting down with Raymond Braun. The activist and influencer is here to talk about the YouTube original documentary, State of Pride, from Academy Award-winning filmmakers Rob Epstein and Friedman. The film follows Braun as he travels to 3 diverse communities to experience how small towns and big cities celebrate LGBTQ Pride. Take a look.
My name is Raymond Braun, and I'm from a small town in Ohio. When I say that I didn't know how to go into the closet, I think this demonstrates that. I mean, hello. Since Stonewall, Pride has been a looking glass into the entire LGBTQ community. So I want to know what it means to young people today. 1, 2, 3, Pride! I decided to take a road trip to big cities and small towns across the country.
The first couple years, people, especially who grew up here, were just shook.
I was at work and this guy, he's like, I'm not gonna be served by this him, she, or whatever it is.
Carson asked us to go to the Pride Parade. I felt like I don't need to go to a Pride Parade to show you that I support you.
I learned from an early age that it's not okay for me to be different. They almost killed me.
It's no secret that no pride is inclusive of trans women.
It's important for the world to know that there are certain experiences that are particular to people in one community.
We still have so far to go.
Pride is both the party and the protest.
The world is ever changing. The world is ever evolving.
This is my mom's first Pride.
And everyone should just get with the program.
As long as LGBTQ people are facing any form of discrimination, Pride is still relevant.
People have been doing this for a long time. We owe it to our elders that we get to be here today.
Welcome to the family.
Happy Pride, everybody!
People could clock I was gay from, as early as I could walk on the...
I mean, look at you.
Look at...
Together for Raymond Braun.
Hi, happy Pride. I love you right here in the front looking very Pride festive.
He has the flag, he has a crown, he has a shirt.
Yes, we're ready.
I feel underdressed, man.
No, you look
I wore
great.
blue today.
You can borrow this anytime.
I told you I'm going to borrow.
Yeah, I was saying, I feel like this is the type of thing that you can't really wear many times because it's pretty distinct. So this is my build moment.
You've got all month for Pride, so you could just rent it out every day and spread the joy.
If you want it, tweet me. If you're in New York, LA, DC.
You're going to regret saying that. People are for sure going to tweet you.
I'm down.
So I got to check out State of Pride last night, and when I sat down to watch it, I didn't really read a lot before, so I didn't know what to expect, and I'm so happy that that's how I went into it because, I mean, more than anything, I just love all of the stories I got to hear, all the different perspectives, all the different narratives to show that it is one community, but also there are distinct, important stories within the community that we need to talk about. So I just want to say congratulations on this film. I think you're going to touch and connect with a lot of people. On that note, I want to know, how did this project come to you? How did this whole thing start?
So I'm from a small, rural, conservative town in Northwest Ohio. It's literally like a lot of farmland whenever I go home to visit my parents.
I'm from Omaha, Nebraska, so
There you go, you got it. So growing up, I think a lot of LGBTQ people can relate to this who didn't grow up in major cosmopolitan cities, but I felt like I was the proverbial lone gay in my town, and there weren't a lot of people, there weren't really anyone that I could see who was out and proud. And so for me, the internet was my lifeline. It was the place where I saw those first images of pride and where I saw those first images of positive LGBTQ portrayals. And so I always wanted to be part of that as I got older and as I got more comfortable with myself, being able to help facilitate stories and images that could potentially inspire or open up or connect with people who are living in places where they do feel isolated and knowing that they're not alone. And with this project in particular, I've always just had, I don't know if you can tell by my jacket, I've always just had a fascination with pride and with some of the really overt symbols of LGBTQ visibility. And I feel like Pride is a really fascinating barometer for what's happening across the country. We could put a pin down on any location on the map of the United States and ask some questions. Do they have a Pride? If they do, who organizes it? What are the politics of that? Who gets to march? What's the order of marching? Is it controversial? Who feels included and excluded? I mean, there's so many questions you can explore with every individual pride. How does it reflect the local culture and customs? And then if they don't have a pride, the question is, why not? You know, we've seen in some small towns, they try, the city council votes it down, or the LGBTQ people don't feel safe enough to have a pride. And so it's like this really interesting lens from my perspective to just view what's happening culturally, socially, and politically in our country right now. And I also love travel. And so originally I was pitching this idea, it's been in the works for several years, as diners, drive-ins, and dives, but small town prides, with the idea of going in and seeing all the like funky, quirky traditions. And what originally inspired that was I was doing research in college for a paper about LGBTQ visibility and community organizing in non-cosmopolitan areas. And I heard this story about a Walmart in North Dakota where one of the employees there is a gay man, and they didn't have any queer spaces, gay bars, LGBTQ centers nearby. So on Saturday nights, he would basically invite people to come to one of the aisles of Walmart, and they would just hang and like do drag and runway. And this was something that was cited in this paper I read. I still don't know if it's mythic or if it's real, because I've really tried to like find it because I want to go to it. But that idea that we find spaces wherever we are, because we are everywhere, let me tell you, traveled all around. I don't care how small the town is, we're here. So.
And throughout history, by the way.
Absolutely.
Like everywhere.
Yes.
I want to talk about the cities that were selected. Yes. Tuscaloosa, Alabama, San Francisco, Salt Lake City, Utah.
And DC.
In DC, why these places?
So DC is what we start and close the film with. And I thought, given that it's called State of Pride and we're looking at what's happening across the United States, just having that visual of the Capitol and of Pride and with what's happening politically right now, we wanted to see how Pride was manifesting in the current climate. And also, Troye Sivan, you go wherever Troye is. Troye was headlining Capitol Pride that year, and he's a friend of mine, and he had been so supportive of this project and the idea, and we were talking about all different ways that we could collaborate. And so when him and his team invited us to go backstage with him, have me interview him in his trailer, and then film his headlining performance, that was amazing. An added bonus was that my drag mom from RuPaul's Drag Race, Asia O'Hara, was also performing in that same lineup. So that was all friends and family in DC, and my mom came. That was her first Pride. Tuscaloosa, I really wanted to showcase a small town Pride, and we wanted to explore how Pride is manifesting itself in the South. As one of the people that we interviewed in Alabama said, the purpose of Pride in small rural towns in the South in a way harkens back to the original purpose of Pride across the country, which was visibility at any cost.
I literally wrote that on my card.
Yes.
It was so moving when he said that, because that fight, sometimes we think, oh, we're past so much of it, but there are certain communities where it is a little more, tangible. You
Absolutely.
Can feel it.
So Tuscaloosa, I mean, we were looking at all different small town prides. We were looking at Charlottesville, Virginia. This is in the South, but Spencer, Indiana, and all different prides in the Deep South. And really what was powering our inquiry were the stories, because this documentary is all about these stories, all of the incredible people that we got to meet. And so we had a short list of prides, but at the end of the day, it was about who has the most powerful, compelling stories, and also who has something at stake. I mean, we follow people who are going to their first Pride since coming out, since transitioning, first Pride with a family member who maybe previously wasn't supportive. And so those stories take time to find, and then you have to find people who are comfortable being on camera and giving you access to their life. And so there was a lot of criteria to narrow it down.
The stories, I mean, that's what makes this film so moving, is the selection of the different narratives, how diverse it is. There's so many people of color in this film, and I thought that was really important because that representation really gets buried so often. And so was that something intentional for you guys to make sure that just everybody was represented?
Absolutely. Thank you for noticing that. I think for me, you can't have a conversation about Pride and about the history of LGBTQ advocacy without centering queer people of color. And especially when you think about Stonewall and when you think about, our legacy of LGBTQ civil rights milestones, we've had, in many cases, trans women of color to thank for being on the front lines and really advocating. And I'm excited that as we reflect on the 50th anniversary of Stonewall, Sylvia Rivera and Marsha P. Johnson are getting statues in New York, which is amazing. And I'm so happy that more people are learning their names and their stories. And having Daranisha's story, for example, in Alabama, where she calls that out and is like, you need to know that we have trans women of color to thank for Pride. That was really important to me. And also, we wanted to really try to reflect the diversity of our community. And so it just felt natural that we were going to have as many different kinds of voices and perspectives as possible. And I hope we can do follow-ups and more content because there are so many more stories to be told as well.
I think in hearing those different stories, I started seeing Pride celebrations as like the protest versus the Pride. I don't think before watching this, I really understood the distinction. I thought Pride was just like, oh, let's just celebrate. But for a lot of people, they are still protesting because they're still fighting for civil rights.
Yes.
And especially in the trans community. So I thought that was a really important distinction that you guys showed, that yes, we can have fun, but there's a real message in Pride. Well.
I'm glad that you got that, and I hope that everyone is intentional this Pride season and beyond to think about how Pride's DNA is really in protest and rebellion and activism. And I'm also encouraging everyone, if you identify with one letter in the LGBTQ acronym, that doesn't necessarily make you an expert on the experiences and challenges of every other letter within the acronym. And I think we could all do a better job of talking to each other, getting to know each other, and through those relationships and personal connections, you naturally develop more empathy for each other and learn how to be better allies. And so that's a message that I really hope people will take on during Pride as well.
So for you personally, going to all these different prides, which one was just the most impactful for you? Most memorable, most fun?
They were all memorable in different ways. I mean, being at DC Pride with a close friend like Troy and having my mom there and watching Pride through her eyes was so powerful. For Salt Lake City, seeing Carsons Story with his family, he comes from a very strictly Mormon family who was having a lot of challenges reconciling their faith with Carson's sexual orientation. And so watching them struggle through that journey and then seeing the ending, I won't give it away, but that was really moving to me. But I think that Tuscaloosa was just so memorable because it was so different from anything that I'd ever experienced. It was in its third year of Pride, and the first year of Tuscaloosa Pride, they had 50 people there. And so we really just had no idea what to expect, how big it would be, how moving it would be. And as you see in the film, I had some major revelations just about Pride in general after having been through Tuscaloosa's Pride.
Yeah, because I think so often we see New York and San Francisco, but when you saw Tuscaloosa, you're like, oh, this actually might mean more for this community because the visibility and the connection and just being able to be in a safe space is very rare, probably
so true
in that area.
And I was thinking about, some people said, oh, only 50 people, but I said, no, that's, first of all, that's amazing. And second of all, the ripple effect is so much greater than that because there are kids that live in the surrounding area of Alabama that saw the report on the nightly news or saw the photo on the homepage or on the front page of their newspaper, and they said, oh my gosh, these people are like me, they're fighting for me, and they live in my community. They don't live in this city that's far away. There's this narrative, I think, I certainly heard it a lot when I was a kid in Ohio, which is like, well, if it's not accepting where you are, just move to a bigger city. But I think that, first of all, a lot of people don't have the privilege, resources, access, or even interest in moving. Maybe they want to be with their family, maybe their work is in whatever location. And so I think we should have a Pride in literally every community because, like I said, we're everywhere. So even if it's 10 people and a picnic table and a flag, go for it. But at least show that you're here, find a way to kind of organize and connect with each other. And it's also a great way to mobilize. I mean, if you're living in a state where there is active legislation that's targeting trans people or that's looking to undermine LGBTQ folks, if you're in one of the 30 states where you can be fired from your job, evicted from your home, or denied basic services simply for being LGBTQ, Pride is a great opportunity to celebrate each other, but it's also an opportunity to all be together and say, what are we going to do about this? How can we raise awareness and mobilize?
Claps for that.
Thank you.
I'm just like staring into your eyes, listening to you speak. I'm like, yeah, man.
Thank you. I'm really passionate about all this.
Yeah, and I mean, it's amazing, the work that you're doing. You mentioned Carson in Salt Lake City, and he has this Mormon family who's very conservative, but he also had a spinal cord injury and is in a wheelchair. And again, the visibility of that for the LGBTQ disability community, again, you don't see those stories told. That is sort of an invisible population oftentimes.
I talked to Carson a lot before we started filming about his story and why he wanted to be involved with the project. And one of the things that he said was really moving to me is that there's so few visibility of LGBTQ folks who have a disability or spinal cord injury. And also he talks a lot about the desexualization too. And the idea of, not seeing people with disabilities as sexual beings or, in that capacity. And that was something that he really wanted to challenge in the film. And I'm really proud of him for doing that and sharing his story.
I have been having this conversation a lot with friends, actually, just about how invisible the disability community is. So again, I think this is going to connect with a lot of people. That's another reason I'm happy it's on YouTube. Troye Sivan had mentioned that he actually used YouTube when he was young to sort of connect to the community, and how impactful that was for him in identifying his sexuality and getting comfortable with it. And the fact that this is going to be, that this is streaming on YouTube. Have you thought about the impact that you're going to get to have on so many young men and women?
I have. I mean, I've heard of so many people, and it was me too, who said, you know, I'm in the closet, I wait till my parents go to bed, I shut my door, I put my headphones in, and I watch YouTube videos of people coming out, or I watch YouTube videos of people talking about their transition. And that helped give me a connection, and that helped give me information and foster a community. And for me, the fact that this documentary is available globally for free was so important, because we want it to get to as many people as possible who need to see it or who don't have a Pride where they can celebrate.
So for you, what was the biggest impact of this film on your life? Because you're out now, you're talking about it, you're promoting it. Have you had a chance to sort of sit back and look at what you guys created and let it soak in?
It's all happening fast, and I'm really excited. And I'm really so moved by the response it's getting so far, and all the people who are reaching out and tweeting and DMing and sharing it, and just seeing the way that the community is mobilizing to support this film. It's truly moved me. I think the best thing to come out of it would be the relationships that I made with everyone who's in the film. We call ourselves the State of Pride family. We're all in touch in different forms, and just seeing all the different places where they are in terms of their coming out journey or their transition journey, and seeing them form connections with each other as well, and support, that has been so exciting. We've had some different screenings and premieres across the country where they've been able to connect and meet each other in different groups. And so I mean, we say the word community a lot as LGBTQ folks, LGBTQ community, but I think we sometimes forget the meaning of it. And I've just been really feeling that and feeling warmth from it all. So I've really loved that. And then it's also just been surreal for me. I mean, if you look up on the poster, it says directed by Academy Award winners Rob Epstein and Jeffrey Friedman. When I was a junior in high school, we do this big history paper at the end of junior year that it's kind of like mythic. As soon as you start as a freshman, it's like, what are you going to write your history 33 on? It's like a 30-page research paper. And I was in the closet at the time, but it bothered me that we only got a sentence for the Stonewall riots and for LGBTQ history and our entire curriculum for American history. And so I was really scared, but I pulled my teacher aside after class one day and I said, I really want to learn about LGBTQ history and write a paper on it, but I'm not out. And I know that we have to do a lot of like public check-ins with our classmates about our topic. She said, why don't you work with me after school on this, and then we'll come up with a fake topic that you can just give high-level updates on, you know, when you have to do the class check-ins. And so I worked with her for 4 months, and the first documentary that I watched was one by Rob and Jeff. You know, Rob is the first openly gay man to win an Academy Award for directing, and it was revolutionary in 1980 when he stood on stage with his Oscar and said, I'd like to thank my partner in life, and basically spoke about his relationship with a man. That visibility was huge. And so to learn about them as a high school student, to write about them, to cite them in my paper and just be a fan, it was beyond comprehension to me that they would actually direct this and that I would be able to collaborate alongside them and present the film alongside them. So that's been another huge impact of
That's
this.
huge. It's like such a full circle moment.
It really felt like it. I broke down when we made our world premiere at South by Southwest Film Festival, and just it all hit me as we were kind of like on stage presenting it together, and I just started crying. Like I couldn't even talk.
You can't keep it together.
Yeah.
You just go into the ugly cry really fast.
Exactly.
And so
You've
what
seen in the film too. I'm an ugly cry. Like they're like B-roll, because I already cried at the beginning, and then there was another moment where I'm crying, but they're like showing nice images of the countryside while I'm crying. Yeah.
So what are your plans for the rest of the month? Are you gonna go to some different prides, some different events? What's your schedule?
Well, believe it or not, I'm going to more prides this year than I did even when we were filming this. And so I think there's 20 on the calendar so far for this year. There's been a ton of prides who are reaching out, and they want to organize screenings and panels. And so, you know, even